We go. We are now recording. Excellent. And what a beautiful day it was today.
Was.
It was, yes. Oh, excellent. So I'm still admitting people into the waiting room or into the Zoom room, right? But kick you back to the waiting room. No, I don't mean that. And Rose, once I start sharing my screen, if you could keep eyes on the waiting room and admit people as they show up, that would be very helpful.
Of course.
Okay. Ricky Papo is in the room. That's nice. I don't quite see you, Ricky, but it's lovely to have you here. And Ted, oh, there you are. Nice to see you. And Ted McIntyre, you're around. Excellent. Martha Grover, you made it. You got the link. That's wonderful. Fabulous. So I think I'm going to get us started.
Okay.
I'm going to share my screen, so bear with me while I set that up. One moment. It's not good to have so many tabs open, Sarah. Here we go.
Now it slows your computer down too.
It does. Okay, everybody. Let me put this in presentation mode now. Can everyone see the screen? Thumbs up for yes?
Yep.
Excellent. So MCAN is really excited about tonight's event that we are co-sponsoring with our partner organization, Mass Energize. And we are just so thrilled that Angela Pitter is here with us this evening. As we realize the new legislative session still wrapping up last session in terms of still pushing for a climate bill, the virtual reality of our advocacy is really upon us. And tonight, we're going to learn from one of the best professionals in the Commonwealth about how to reach our decision makers and advocate our priorities. Just very, very quickly, a rundown of our agenda so you know what to expect on the call. This event, as I mentioned, is being recorded. If you don't want to have your face visible on the recording, just turn your video off. I invite all of you to put your name and your affiliation and where you are calling in from into the chat. Angela has a lot of content she wants to share with us, which is so wonderful and generous on her part. And so given that, I ask that you put questions into the chat. And we have time set aside at the end for some Q&A, and we are going to save the chat and send it out in a follow-up email. So you can have, if there are resources dropped into the chat, we'll be sure to capture those as well. I'm just going to quickly introduce our two co-hosting organizations tonight, and then I will turn it over to Angela after I introduce her. Please know that we will be sending up that follow-up email, a link to the recording, the slide deck itself, and some information about 2 upcoming virtual lobby days, which will give you the opportunity to really practice some of the tips and tools that Angela is going to be presenting this evening. So, as I mentioned, 2 organizations are co-hosting this event tonight. Massachusetts Climate Action Network is one of those organizations. We are an advocacy, grassroots-based nonprofit based in Waltham. We've been around since 2000, and we work with, now it's over 65 chapters across the state of Massachusetts that focus on local action around clean energy, energy equity, and increasingly energy efficiency as it relates to affordable housing. And so we really think that the way change happens in Massachusetts is that it starts at the local level and it inspires state level action. So we work with our local chapters to really come together and mobilize around state issues. And so part of what MCAN has realized now, during COVID, looking ahead at the new legislative session, is that we really want to support our advocates and our own staff on how to be much more savvy and strategic with our social media communications. terms of reaching decision.
Project it.
I also want to introduce our other organization that is co-hosting tonight's event, and that is Mass Energize. Brad Hubbard Nelson is our contact at Mass Energize, and this is a really fascinating group that uses web-based, interactive web-based platforms to share resources and to share, promote collaborations and create these communities of practice to motivate both residents and businesses in towns and communities across the state, specifically focusing on reducing greenhouse gas emissions and preparing for a livable, breathable, equitable future as we move into a climate changed world. And so we just want to give a big shout out to Mass Energize. Many of MCAN chapters work with Mass Energize and use their web-based platform to push out content. So that's, they were a logical partner for this event. So kudos to anyone who's involved with Mass Energize on this call this evening. I do now want to briefly introduce Angela Pitter. I'm just going to read something so I don't mess up her very impressive bio. So bear with me. So Angela Pitter, the themes for her company called Livewire Collaborative, the themes are connect, collaborate, and convert, which I think resonate very strongly with both Mass Energize and MCAN themes of how we do our advocacy. Angela Pitter is the founder and CEO at Livewire Collaborative, which is a digital marketing consultancy that helps business owners and executives and nonprofits tap into digital marketing solutions to really reach our full advocacy potential and to use social media once again to connect, collaborate, and
the Concord Advisory Committee one and see how that.
I'm going to ask, yes, great. If you could mute yourselves, that would be so lovely. Angela is a highly sought after speaker, and she was highly recommended to me, who has previously been featured on the TV series Chronicle, WCVB, and has personally trained thousands of CEOs, business owners, and consultants around the world on their signature LinkedIn influencer system. She's a certified project management professional and holds both her master's in administration and BS in computer engineering from Boston University. And she currently serves on the board of directors for the Newton Needham Regional Chamber of Commerce. And with that, Angela, it's so great to have you here. I am going to stop sharing my screen. And Angela, I yield the floor to you.
Well, good evening, everyone. I am so happy to be here today, and thank you. I'm going to share my screen here. Thank you, Sarah, for such a lovely introduction. And today we're going to talk about how to power up your nonprofit, social media for advocates. And I want to thank once again MCAN for hosting today's event, as well as in combination with Mass Energize. And you already heard all about my background. So what I can say to you is if you're on Twitter, follow me. And if you're on LinkedIn, connect with me there. And here's my QR code. You can just scan that right in and you'll be on my LinkedIn profile in lickety split. I'm going to ask that everybody goes on mute. So I'm just going to take care of that real quick. And then I'm going to, I think I'm on mute. Am I on mute? No, I'm not on mute. Good. So, and normally I do some additional housekeeping, but I don't think I need to do that today. So let's just get started here. So the things that we're going to cover today's agenda. Talk about, first of all, the social media landscape and all of the trends. I'm going to talk about and show you examples of how nonprofits like yours are using social media. And I'm actually going to just talk about some other tools you can use as well. How do you recruit volunteers? And finally, the best for last is how you're going to use social media to reach your local and state decision makers. So let's first take a look at the landscape. So here's some statistics that you may want to understand. The entire worldwide population is almost 8 billion. And almost 5 billion are on the internet. And almost 4 billion are on social media. Here's the number, my friends. 9 accounts nearly on average. So not just one Facebook, one Twitter, one Instagram. They have multiple accounts on multiple platforms. And they spend a lot of time, and I bet you that number has gone up since we've been in this pandemic. And if you look at the popular ones, YouTube and Facebook are at the top of the list. And then Twitter, with all of the noise that it generates, is really at the bottom of the list in terms of active users. We're going to come back to this slide towards the end where we're talking about outreach. But this is really sort of how things line up. And if you're not familiar with TikTok, that is a new one that popped up not so long ago. And that's mostly a platform that's used by teenagers. And I'm not sure how many of you have audiences that are that young. I am going to talk a little bit about them, but not much, because that is not the premise for today. But in general, we're talking about there's at least 1.5 million nonprofit organizations in the US, and this is how they're using social media. And I'm going to just ask people for a show of hands from your organization. Do you all have Facebook pages? If you can raise your hand if you have a Facebook page. Okay. Do you have an Instagram page? Raise your hand if you have an Instagram page. Okay. What about Twitter? How many of you are on Twitter? I can't see everybody. Let me just open up my screen here. All right. What about LinkedIn? Let me see. LinkedIn, anybody? Not so many people on LinkedIn. You're missing out. YouTube? Okay. So there's folks that are literally on all of them. That's, you know. So that is sometimes good news, sometimes bad news, because when you're on all the platforms, that means you're kind of spreading yourself thin, especially if you don't have that many resources. But let's first talk about Facebook. And so think about this is of all the females in the world, 75% of all the females in the world are on Facebook, and 63% of all the males are on Facebook. And that's the same way you reach the age group. So 79% of the folks in the 30 to 49 age range are on Facebook. And it's the fastest growing population is 65 plus right now on Facebook. So Facebook is definitely aging, but you know, it has almost 3 billion people on there. They're using it daily. They're spending at least a half an hour every day on it. But just food for thought, you know, we spend a lot of time on Facebook, but the honest answer here is most of the Facebook users, you know, only 10% live in US or Canada, right? So most of the that 3 billion number is outside of the US. It also has the lowest engagement rate. It really is pay to play. So if you want Facebook to work for you, you do need to run ads. Videos also do work, but without the sound. So that means for you, if you're on Facebook with videos, you definitely need to caption them. And people watch videos a lot on Facebook, especially when they're live. And take that note, because I'm going to come back to this idea. But however, it is one of the best platforms, I would say hands down, in terms of all of the fundraising tools that it offers to organizations and your supporters that are trying to raise money on your behalf. They make it super easy. And the same thing is true actually for Facebook, for Instagram, because of course, if you didn't realize, Facebook owns Instagram, right? So, and if you look at the audience again, you see the female are in the lead, the demographics are younger. It is definitely the place for millennials, but just remember, the oldest millennial this year is turning 40. So the 20-year-old does not have the same interest as the 40-year-old, yet both those groups are on Instagram, right? But it's the photo platform, right? It's all about photos. All of the content is mostly photos. There are videos, the carousel. So a carousel, if you don't understand what a carousel is, it is just a series of photos. So when you see a post on Instagram that has multiple photos, that's what they call the carousel. It does get, in general, more organic reach than any other type of content. So I definitely would encourage you to use that as well. UGC, which is user-generated content. People say when you are showing other users, so when you show your volunteers in action, people are more likely to pay attention. That's how you should read this. And Instagram also has the highest engagement rate of all of the platforms, except for TikTok. And most of you probably don't have people on TikTok that you need to reach. Now, when we look at Twitter, again, the audience is a fraction. So it was just like 300 million versus nearly 2 billion on 3 billion, sorry, on Facebook and 2 billion on Instagram. But again, you still have, all of the age ranges on Twitter. Twitter is definitely about breaking news, so you can't ignore Twitter. While there's only 300 million, I'm going to show you a slide and a spoiler alert. I'm just going to throw it out there now. It is actually the 5th most visited website. So people are on Twitter for news, for breaking news. Anything that's trending, that's happening, is going to happen on Twitter. But some of the stats here, 40%, the users have purchased. If you're thinking about income level, which is again another reason to target the audience, 75,000 each year. However, LinkedIn, my friends, are the ones that have the people with the highest income of all. Journalists, of course, every journalist, every broadcaster, every news station, anything news is on Twitter. Video across the board, no matter what platform you're on, actually gets the highest engagement. In the case of Twitter, 10 times more. And mobile. So Twitter and Instagram, I definitely, well, all of them have a higher mobile degree, but definitely these two platforms even higher. LinkedIn. LinkedIn is all about companies and B2B. Now you can be B2C, you can be a nonprofit on LinkedIn. And in fact, LinkedIn is taking enormous efforts now to help their nonprofits even more. And I should have added that on the slide here, but if you are a nonprofit and you need to run a jobs ad or you want to run LinkedIn ads, definitely go to nonprofit.linkedin.com and reach out to one of their nonprofit specialists, because nonprofits on LinkedIn pay half the rate. So whatever the rate is that they're charging for the ads, for the job post, 50% off. So keep that in mind. But just like all the other platforms, videos, more engaged, more viewed, profiles with a photo. So if you have your own personal photo, if you're executive director here, all executive directors should be on LinkedIn with a nice active profile, which includes a headshot, which includes a headline, which describes your organization, and that great background photo, again, talking about your organization, because that's a great place to just pitch everything that is happening for your organization. And then finally, I just thought I'd include TikTok, because it is one of the fastest growing platforms. Just overnight, it's become the 6th largest social network. People are downloading billions of videos. I mean, it's a video app if you don't realize, but it's a teeny bopper app. I mean, if you look at the age range here, 66% of all users are under 30. And really, I would say mostly under 20 even. 49% of the teenagers claim to use it. Those are the ones that are only admitted to it. They're probably all really using it. And the engagement rate is tremendous. So if you can figure out as an organization how to use TikTok, definitely think about that. Because remember, just like on Instagram, the ones that are now 40 were once 20 on Instagram, right? And the same thing's going to happen on TikTok. They're going to age in place. So TikTok is going to become important for you over time. It may not be there today, but over time, it will become more important. Okay, so let's talk about just last slide here. I'm going to change gears, but what's the best ROI? And the answer really is depends. What are you trying to do? I mean, Facebook is definitely great when you're thinking about building a campaign. And when you're thinking about running ads, it is definitely the cheaper solution versus all of the other platforms. When you're thinking about lead generation, and if you also want to engage sponsors, so sponsors for your event or for your fundraiser, LinkedIn is the place to be, because all of your businesses, local, regional, national, they're on LinkedIn. All those decision makers are on LinkedIn. All of the people with the pocketbooks are on LinkedIn. So you really, really, really want to take advantage of that. Instagram has the highest engagement, and I would say it is definitely a platform, and you just got to think about the different neighborhoods of Instagram. So when I say neighborhoods of Instagram, so Instagram, you can just post on the regular feed. Then there's Instagram stories. Then there's IGTV, which is, you can have much longer videos. So if you do want to have a 5-minute or 10-minute video, if you have something behind the scenes, or you're interviewing somebody, call to arms, you can put all of those type of videos on your IGTV. And then now they have Instagram Reels, which is just like the TikTok minimum. They're trying to compete with TikTok head on. So they have different ways of using Instagram. So think about what's going to work best for your organization. And frankly, the end of the day, Twitter, you just have to be on there, because if you're trying to do anything political action, you have to be on Twitter, because that's where all of this happening. All of the breaking news is happening right there. All right, so let's change gears here. Let me just stop a second. Sarah, were there any questions on the landscape?
Yes, actually, I actually have a question. B2B?
Business to business.
Thank you. That's what I thought, but I just wanted to make sure people knew that.
Mhm.
And then there was a question, bear with me while yes, from Deborah Marion. And I don't remember which slide this was, Angela, but the question is, what are organic interactions?
So organic is interaction that happens naturally. So you didn't pay to get the interaction. They saw the post and they hit like, or they saw the post and they commented, or they saw the post and they shared the post all by themselves. They didn't need any help. Obviously, if you pay, then more people will see it. And that's paid reach.
Okay, excellent. And one request that we hope you show your QR code at the end so people can scan it at the end. And those
it will be back.
excellent. Of course it would be. Okay, fabulous.
All right, so let's move on. I'm going to change gears now. So let's talk about how your nonprofits are using social media, right? So this is what the donors say that get them going, right? Print, 33% say email. So as much as we want to talk about social media today, don't forget that email is still the #1 tool that's going to work best for you. So if you don't have a sort of email sequence and funnel, you do definitely need to have because that is the that in combination with social media will work best, right? And then you can see here what inspires them. 56% say Facebook, 21% say Instagram, and guess what? Even though again the numbers don't lie, Twitter is still there. It is still inspiring people. And in fact, in terms of donation, all of those tools I mentioned, I'm going to come back to, I'm going to deep dive a little bit more into the Facebook tools. 88% said they're likely to give again using those tools. But remember, email, right? In terms of repeat donations, email is still the best tool. So what gets people going? So the storytelling, every organization has a story. This is a Twitter post, but it doesn't matter. It's telling a story. And this is where, in Australia, they had those fires, and this is the Australian Red Cross feeding. You can heal yourself, but there's no point in being healed if those around you are still broken. That's why we need to walk it together. And at the end of it, we're all going to be healed. So hashtag bushfires, right? So get personal. Use the names, the images, really connect with your people by being personal and telling those stories. Impact, right? So if you can show the before and the after, again, it's just another type of story, but you're really trying to show the outcome. People want to, they always ask, okay, when I give you my money, what's going to happen? So if you can kind of take them through the journey on how their investment in your organization will help save a life, for example, show that as much as you can. Humor. We all love to laugh, right? Especially 2020, if there's something out there that makes me laugh. And that's why I think a lot of people are binging on Netflix now, because they just want to just forget everything. But if 53% of consumers are more likely to remember if it's funny, right? You want it to be relatable to your audience. So think about it. I mean, there was so many jokes in the year with COVID, especially around parenting and collaboration. And I was talking to Sarah about this before we started. You really want to collaborate. Companies are trying their best now to do the right thing. And if you can help them do the right thing, help them spend their money, help them do the right thing with your organization, right? They always want to be, aligning with organizations that are helping the community. And it's always about, how can I help me help you? And that's exactly what you want to talk to them about. So this, story is all about, Habitat for Humanity, company employees volunteer for the Habit for Humanity. So if you have a project which makes sense that you can bring an organization in on it, that's the best thing, because it's a win-win. So now, not only are you sharing the story on your social media, you're also sharing the story on their social media, right? So when you partner, you get more reach, you have greater impact. Unfortunately, that is what our former president learned very early on. He hooked his wagon right to Fox News. And every time he tweeted, they tweeted. And so, his 30 million, then their 20 million, then he had 50 million, and then they had 40. So they were growing their social presence on Twitter hand in hand. And it works. It definitely works. And also collaborate with other organizations. I'm really excited that, MCAM came together with Mass Energize. It's really, especially when you have limited resources, the best thing you can do is align with an organization that's similar to yours. Now you're introducing your audiences to each other, and then get greater visibility. And also, again, sometimes it makes it easier perhaps to bring into a sponsor, because then when the sponsor says, well, let me tell me about your social media presence, you say, well, because we're two organizations, instead of seeing 5,000 and 5,000 on Twitter, you're going to see 10,000 people. So it makes your numbers really much more attractive. Now, Facebook fundraising tools. I want to talk about that because they, like I said earlier, they are the best tools, right? They have a whole collection of tools, which I'm going to share with you. They don't charge a fee. 100% of the donation comes right back to your organization. You can do it on desktop. You can do it on mobile. There's a link here when you get the slides. You can go straight through it, and they have a full e-learning module that will walk you through all of it. So if you're not familiar with, and a matter of fact, I'm going to stop share here for a second. I want to see a show of hands. How many of you are using the Facebook fundraising tools? Just, you could just do your hand. It could use the hand raising. Oh, not hardly enough. Oh, no. Okay. Hopefully by the time I finish talking, more of you will be doing it. Okay. Actually, I got to share my screen again. Sorry about that. Okay, here we go. Because I wasn't sure. I was going to leave it off. And I said, well, let me talk about it just in case. I'm glad I am. So here's an example, right? The guide dogs. And again, this happened in 2020. And they literally just used the Facebook donate. They also did include some ads, but they raised, this is an organization out of the UK, but they raised 26,000 in donations, which is 26,000 pounds, which I want to say is probably close to $50,000, and over a 70% increase by using the Facebook donate button, right? And here's a couple of different things you can do with the donate button, right? So you can use the donate button on your page. So you can get the donate button on your page. You can also add the donate button to your post, and you can go live. So this is live video. You can add the donate button. You can see it right here. It's a little bit tiny, but you can see the thing here. You can also use it on Instagram. Here's the sticker. So again, if you're using Instagram stories, which you should be, because stories is a great tool on Instagram. And then the last one here is also the Instagram donate button. So you have to apply. And in the back of the slide deck, when you get the slide deck, I do include all of the steps to apply so that you can be officially verified by Facebook, because not until you verify that you're able to access the donate button on your profile. Now, the other side of the coin is Facebook has made it easy for your supporters to fundraise on your behalf. So everything that I just showed you that you can do as an organization, your supporters can also do and raise on their behalf. So in this case, this organization, NAM, National Alliance on Mental Illness, went and asked their supporters to help them fundraise. They raised over $33,000 doing this one, and this was during their giving season. But again, the same way, you have 4 tools to do this, right? And it starts with people are able to create a post and include that donate button, select your organization, so they can do that. There's also birthday fundraisers with the donate button. I'm not sharing a screenshot of that, but they can also, just like you as an organization can go live, they can go live and also include the donate button there. And the same thing on Instagram, add it to their story, the sticker to donate fundraiser. And then finally, they can also do live video on Instagram as well. So, oh, sorry, this is the sticker. Use another sticker as well on the Instagram story. But you can, as an organization, go live on Instagram and get the donate button. So, video. Why do I keep coming back to video? Because video is the most popular type of content on every platform, hands down. And you can just see the statistics here. 8 billion on Facebook, 8 billion on Snapchat, watching an hour video. And this was pre-COVID statistics, honestly. You know, in the US, 175 people watching it, 78% watching every week, 55% watching every day. All of the traffic, it's even more now, 2021. But the easiest tool to use is Facebook Live. And Facebook, like I said earlier, has really become pay to play. So you're not getting a lot of organic reach on your posts. However, you will get a lot of organic reach when you go live. So if you are trying to gather in a lot of folks around a cause, especially if you're trying to do something around the State House, Facebook Live is a great tool to use. You're going to get organic reach. You can run live for as long as 4 hours. If you want to do a telethon live, you can do that too. Actually, I think it's, up to 8 hours. It's 4 hours on Instagram, 8 hours. I don't know why you wouldn't want to go hours. Again, if you're doing a telethon, that's about the only scenario I can think of. But live videos, 6 times more interaction. They spend 3 times more time watching it, and you're going to get 10 times more engagement. And what happens is the longer you go live, actually, the better it is. So live is not like, on Instagram, and you put the quick 15-second or the 1-minute video. Live, you're typically going like about 30 minutes, so you really have something to talk about. This is when you're interviewing industry leaders or experts in your industry, maybe this expert on climate. You want to have a whole panel of them, you're talking to them about different things. You want to be live, because the longer you're live and the more people are engaging with your live, the more Facebook sends it out. So it helps the algorithm to sending out, hey, mass climate is live, come take a look. So you want to be live and spend a little bit of time and literally I always tell people, think about it as a production. And the thing about live that I really like is once you have live content, then you can easily repurpose the live, right? So you can download it off of Facebook, upload it onto YouTube, right? And again, if you think about, you have limited resources. So you really want to think about, when I spend the time, on a half an hour talking, what else am I going to do with this content, right? So you can now then, slice it up, Twitter videos, LinkedIn videos, Instagram stories, IGT, spread the love. You could turn it into a podcast. So one of the tricks I tell people is go live on Zoom. And the reason I say go live on Zoom is because Zoom can live stream. You can live stream from Zoom to your Facebook page. You could even do it to YouTube if you want. You could pick one or the other. But let's stick with Facebook Live, because that's what we're talking about. Because when you create it on Zoom, Zoom creates, first of all, it creates a better file. Because when you just go live directly on Facebook, is a 720p versus 1080. So it's a better quality video through Zoom. And Zoom also gives you the audio file. So when you have the audio file, if you are thinking about, I'm going to do a podcast series, now you can use the audio file as part of your podcast series. And then you could also, you know, some people connect, there's another tool called otter.ai. And what that is a transcription service, and you can connect that up with Zoom as well. So at the end of your Zoom, not only do you have a video file, an MP3 audio file, you also have the transcript. And now you can have a blog post and all your graphics, everything else that you need as well at the end. So these are 5 easy ways to go through the process of going live, repurpose the heck out of it. So now.
Angela, could I jump in just really quickly? There's a question in the chat that I think so many people would love to hear your response to. And that question is, could you talk a little bit about how Facebook delineates between nonprofits and political advocacy groups around using the fundraising tools?
So yeah, yes and no. So I can tell you, I know there's organizations out there right now who have applied for the fundraising tools and have not gotten approved. And there's no clear reason, rhyme or reason why that is happening. And I know they're now getting definitely stricter and locking it down a lot more, especially, you know, since the whole Mark Zuckerberg thing blew up, whatever year that was. So, because it used to be easier, you used to just submit the paperwork and they would come back around. So now I noticed when I was preparing for this, I noticed it said 2 to 3 weeks. It never took that long before. So I'm not sure exactly how they're distinguishing between it. I can say this, Facebook shuts things down a lot quicker now than they used to. And again, no rhyme or reason. They may, and I can tell you how many organizations ran an ad and then they didn't approve the ad. No, why didn't you approve the ad, Facebook? No clue, no, they don't give you any answer, they just stop it. But what I have done is Facebook employees are also on LinkedIn. So I searched them up on LinkedIn, send them a message and say, you know, your Facebook stuff sucks. I need help here. And you do get their attention. So it's a real weird thing, but everybody at the end of the day professionally is on LinkedIn. And you can search by title on LinkedIn. So if you really need an answer, find the Facebook people. They're all there. They're all there. So I know you couldn't answer directly, but I can't figure out some of the things that Facebook is doing, especially within the last 2 years.
Yeah, that's been my experience too. So thank you for that. And I really,
yeah, because I saw you guys weren't verified. So did you try to verify?
I did.
And then just no response.
No response. So I'm going to do the LinkedIn trick. We do have another question from Ellen Tone on the call tonight. Can you provide a link to the Facebook donate button on organizations' websites that now use PayPal? Is that compatible?
No, it's not. You know, PayPal is, you can't have PayPal on the back end, because basically what happens.
I think, let me just, sorry, it's Ellen with the question. So right now, for our donate now on our website, we just have a link, we process it through PayPal.
Right.
So on that, on our own organic website, could we have a link to the Facebook donate button? Because PayPal is taking a small cut, right?
Right. Oh, so you want to embed the, you know what, Ellen, drop your information in the chat.
Yeah.
I'm going to dig that one out, because I think you can grab the embed code and do that, but let me just make sure. Yeah. Was there another question?
I think in the interest of time, oh, actually, Martha asks, so many folks on the call this evening, Angela, are from all volunteer, very small organizations. and managing all these different social media platforms, updating email lists, creating newsletters and content is really, as we all know, a full-time job. So what are your recommendations for prioritizing messaging strategies and keeping it manageable given resource constraints, and for basically someone to do with just in 1 or 2 hours a week? Where would you prioritize?
So I think you really have to come up with a content strategy. And actually, I had that slide in and then I moved it to the back. And, you know, interest of time was here, but I'm going to just speak to it. You really got to think about the strategy. Like, what's the goal? What's the goal for the organization? What are you trying to hit today? I mean, so you're trying to grow your volunteers. I mean, you're probably going to have multiple goals, right? And then you got to think about what's the best content that's going to work to align with that goals. What's the best social media that's going to work with those goals? And then where can I get like the bang for the buck? Like if I do Facebook Live, can I do that and get my volunteers? Can I do that and get donations? Can I do, so like you try to do multiple things, like, you know, like I want a twofer out of this, maybe a threefer, as much as I can get for it. And that's why I, you know, and to that point, why I always talk about repurposing content, because that's really the name of the game. With your content strategy, think about a series, right? And I like people to think about typically a monthly series, right? A monthly series that has 3 parts. And the 4th week of the month, you recap the first 3 weeks. And then month 2, you start it all over. Now you're in month, you know, your series topic number 2. So really look at your calendar, and especially if there's particular moments where you have specific outreach campaigns that you're running. So you're going to sort of tie the series to what's happening. And it makes it, I think, so much easier when you just kind of say, okay, it's got 12 things, 12 months of the year. Each month I'm focusing on one thing. But within that one thing, you can break that out into 3 things. The end of the last week of the month is your recap. And then guess what? Quarterly, you recap the last 3. 6 months, you recap the last 6. You see how this works? And then January comes, you start it all over again. So think about what are those things. Because if you look at the calendar, I'm certain there are things for your organization that you do a certain time of year every single time. It's cyclic. Now, there are other things that are sort of out of the scope. It doesn't necessarily follow the cycle, but there are things that are cyclic. Plug those in first, because those are the easiest things, and then think about where you need to fill in the gaps.
Yep, that's fantastic. That's really great. And I do want to make sure, Angela, that you actually get to go through your slide deck. Okay,
so I'm gonna hold all the questions this time to the end. Okay, so now you're recruiting. So the first thing is, you know, the simple question, right? Did you ask them, right? Does your website have a section? Are you highlighting volunteer activities? Are you pitching stories about volunteers? Are you featuring volunteer opportunities? Are you asking your volunteers to invite their friends? I mean, you could have an invite a friend event. And have you thought about these other websites? So there's Volunteer Match, Create the Good, Idealist, that you can use to also do your recruiting, right? So one of the things is being specific. So a lot of times the call to action is too general. You can't just say I'm looking for volunteers, right? Because people have limited time, especially now in COVID. I feel like they even have less time, right? You have to be specific. Your ask has to be specific. And then you really got to go into what's in it for me, right? You know, it's the same thing. What's in it for me? So make it about them, right? So how, you know, help them, help me, help you, right? So what is it going to be for me? Am I going to be able to use my skills? Am I going to meet other people? Like, what is it for me that I'm going to connect with? And then is it easy to do it, right? You know, don't make me jump all kind of hoops and hurdles. I want to really be able to look right there. That's the button right in the middle. It's easy to see. It's easy to navigate. Also, you know, on your social media, you know, make it really easy with the sign-up forms, even around Giving Tuesday. Use the hashtags, you know, if you're trying to recruit volunteers. You know, really, again, think about what is it going to be, make it easy for them to do. And then again, think about also the engagement. So I was reading something about micro engagement, like literally I only have a few moments, what can I do? So think about like, really, and again, I think this connects with back to the be specific, like I can come in and do one thing. I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna organize your route. Or I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna work on your social media. And I only have, one time a month I can do something, or I can only be there maybe for your annual event. So really help me connect what I want to do with also your needs. So you have to think about that and break it down. And then of course there's LinkedIn, right? So I know you probably don't think about recruiting volunteers and board members on LinkedIn, but you can. If you go there right now, you'll see there's a number of volunteer openings on LinkedIn, and people on LinkedIn will also put on their profile that they're open to volunteering. So think about that and think about using LinkedIn that way. But you know what, recruiting is one thing, retention is the other thing. You gotta keep them, right? And what you really wanna do is use your existing volunteers and make them advocates for you, because that's really honestly the easiest way to do. So when you bring them on, right, do you have an orientation? Are you welcoming? Are you introducing them to everybody? Are the expectations very clear? You're generating some excitement around it. And then, ask for feedback along the way. Make sure, apologize, that, if they have questions, so learn from them as well. So make sure you're reaching out and getting that feedback. And training. Sometimes you need to train them. And so make sure that they're acquainted with the tools, your procedures, they're knowledgeable. Make sure that they're able, again, it's that help me help you. Sometimes they may have the skill set, but the gap to the type of task there's a mismatch. So kind of think about that as well. And, this is really the part, to make the current volunteers your champions. And you really need to really help them. And the way you help them is you follow them, you comment on their stuff, you share what they're doing for the nonprofit. Of course, you ask their permission, and usually they're glad to. If you want, you could even create a private group, so you could have more conversation just amongst the volunteers. Create a poll like this examples here, so trying to, why did you start volunteering once? So, people can really engage. Make it really simple, use cool hashtags. So these are all little ways you can help your volunteers. And then finally, everybody wants to be recognized, right? You want to send a thank you, you want to recognize them, volunteer of the month, send them a card, a letter, that's, getting something in the mail. Oh my God. And you do mailings, right? You do mailings to your donors, do mailings to your volunteers as well. Work with influencers, right? Because sometimes you just need to pump things up a little bit. So if there's some local person, and it doesn't have to necessarily be an influencer, I should just say, use somebody in the community that's well recognized, everybody knows their name. Get them to come in, take that picture, post it on Instagram, post it on Facebook, and then it's interesting, the conversations that will come up. It's like, I want to help next time. Do you know of any volunteer opportunities for this Thanksgiving? And he responds right back, you know what? They're always flooded around Thanksgiving. We love if you can come throughout the year when they have greater needs. So, just think about things like that. Now, in the last few moments we have, how are we going to reach our local and state decision makers? So you remember this chart at the beginning that I had where Facebook was at the top and Twitter was at the bottom? Well, here's another chart. And again, I mentioned this earlier. Twitter is one of the top 5 sites that are accessed on a daily basis. It is key. 65% of all members are on Twitter. And if, again, if you look at it break it out by chamber, Senate, 70%, 60% of the houses, you really want to be on Twitter when you're thinking about outreach. They are on there every single day. They don't miss a beat. And if you need to pressure them, that is the way to do it. Twitter is absolutely the way to do it. And what you really want to do is have these virtual events, because remember, nobody's running down to the State House now. So, I mean, you can think about all the briefings, telephone town halls. And election time, I was doing a lot of telephone campaigns via Zoom, mind you. We're on our phone and on Zoom all together. So think about how you can use the technology to really get in front of them. And between video, so on Twitter, you can do live video on Twitter. I don't know if you guys ever thought about that, but you can do live video on Twitter just as like as you can do Facebook Live. And in fact, there's tools like Restream.io where you can stream on multiple platforms simultaneously. So you can stream to Twitter, you can stream to YouTube, you can stream to Facebook, all at the same time. So again, if you think about, I only have 2 resources. One of us got to be doing the talking, the other one has the camera. So that you want to use something like Restream.io to do stuff like that. User-generated content, there's lots of it out there. If you could think about any type of legislative action, sign the petition, really make it easy as part of your tweet. In this case is a fill in the blank and also a partnership. So again, back to those partnerships with other organizations. This was the American Heart Association with the American Stroke Organization. And then hashtags. Hashtags on Twitter are like almost the #1 tool. You should not be tweeting without using a hashtag. So today, if you didn't know, is Random Acts of Kindness Day. So Charity Water posted up this earlier, and it's funny because they actually had a guide, find your random act of giving. So isn't it talk about repurposing content? They just threw that back out there today. And if you go back and look, when they actually originally posted this, they're asking people to reshare their favorite moments. So you have to think about how you're going to create content that activates your audience to do something, right? Because when they do something like this, reshare a moment, that reshare is happening off your Twitter account, right? And then people see that share on their account, and then they reshare it off. And you see what I'm saying? It has that chain reaction. So if you can get that chain reaction started, that's what you want. So you really got to think about, how am I gonna get the party started, so to speak, right? So this is what they use. They use their random acts of kindness. Also today was trending, cancel student debt. So these trends happen on Twitter, and you really have to just pay attention, because you don't, it's not always, I mean, obviously if it's sort of a time, it's like, so last summer, Black Lives Matter. So almost every day that was pretty much trending. But then sometimes you have these moments in time like this, where cancel student debt will pop up. You can go on Twitter and go into that find what's happening on the sidebar and find out what is trending. And if it makes sense, you need to jump on the trend, because once it's trending, that means it's in everybody's news feed. So that naturally happens. For example, Giving Tuesday, on Friday, sometimes you'll find a trend, Fact Friday. So think about using hashtags. And this I'm gonna demo, follower list. This is really where all the sort of juiciness happens on Twitter, is using the list. And the lists are a tool where you can create your own list, or you can follow and you can follow other people's lists. So there's a lot of lists happening on Twitter that are generated. And if you look behind, so for example, there's mass state agencies, and these are all real links to real lists. Legislator lists, mass legislator, this is a list from 2015, but it's still pretty relevant. Climate Braz, he has a whole list of lists. So if you go to his Twitter profile and click on the list, so if you go to his profile and just hit this view list over here, you'll see all of the lists. He has journalists, it goes on. And of course, just pay attention to our Mass Gov, our Mass Senate, and see what they're also following. So I just want to demonstrate this. Let me actually do this. All right, here's my Twitter screen. Okay, so there's a tool called Tweetdeck. It's a free tool. Twitter owns it. And if you log into to Tweetdeck with your Twitter account, you can literally follow and find just about anything. So I have this preset up here. So I literally put in, okay, what did I have? So this is in combination. So there's a couple of things here. You can follow and follow hashtags. So there's hashtags. I put climate facts, climate action, climate change, right? And what it's doing is it's building me a news feed of everybody who tweeted with this hashtag, right? So if you're trying to find breaking news around your, sort of issue, use it put it in as a hashtag, and you can just literally keep this going and just check it regularly. Then there's lists. So you can add a list. I thought I put a list in here. I didn't put a list in here. I just put all the hashtags in here. So one second. Let me go back and find one of those lists. All right. Let's pick a list from good old Brad. So this is what I was mentioning. Climate Brag has a lot of lists on his profile. And you can just kind of hover over it. Let me actually demonstrate that too. He has this democratic. So if I go to this list that he's created, right? And you see 94 members. So 94 members means there's 94 different accounts that he's added to the list. So there's a couple of things about this. I just while we're here. You could actually then go in and follow any of these accounts that interest you, or you can just follow the list and add yourself to the list. And that way you can just kind of go back to the list. And what list does, again, all it's doing is building a news feed of all these accounts. And when you add the news feed over here to TweetDeck, so this is the easy way. So then you could follow your list, follow your hashtags, and do everything on one screen. So that's why I like TweetDeck, because it's a free tool and you can do everything one-stop shopping. I know I went over that fast. So, but feel free to hit me up and I can talk to you a little bit slower. And then there's LinkedIn. So again, I don't want you to forget about LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is very important when you're trying to reach those people that are in your field, especially say you're looking for a speaker for your organization. Again, LinkedIn global. So, today, you might be talking to someone next door, but tomorrow might be someone in the UK. Everybody is on on LinkedIn, right? Andy Vargas, he's so all over. I don't even know how he has time to do his job, frankly, because he's all over LinkedIn all the time. He's always posting on LinkedIn. He's always posting on Twitter. I would say, though, he's the exception. When it comes to LinkedIn and representatives, he's probably exception because almost all of them are on Twitter, but only a fraction of them are really on LinkedIn. So before you, I would definitely go to the profile and check them out, the ones you care about, and see if they're doing anything on LinkedIn. So here's my final closing thoughts, right? So your message has to be equivalent to what your supporters are thinking about. Your message is their story, right? And you're gonna is many to many on these social platforms. That's why we do it, because the reach is so far. And then your community controls the distribution. So again, that goes back to sharing those stories. You wanted that organic resharing of the story. And it's earned through engagement. So if it's a good story, yes, they're gonna like it. If it's a good story, yes, they're gonna comment on it. If it's a good story, they're absolutely gonna share it. And the more they do, the cost of engagement decreases as the engagement increases. So that's all I have for you. And that QR code that you wanted is right here. So you can scan it and connect back with me on LinkedIn. I know we're probably over time here, but I'll stick around as long as you want me to finish up on the questions.
That was fantastic, Angela. And actually, we didn't see the final QR code.
Oh, Did I not share it good? Okay, let me do that again.
That would be great. Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Fabulous. Excellent. Um, uh, Angela, do you have a few minutes to?
Absolutely. Whatever you guys need.
Okay, great. So,
No rush. If you stick around, I'll stick around.
okay, great. So there are some kind of very pragmatic questions that people have. One from Melissa around Twitter. Does she need a personal profile to create a nonprofit org handle?
So Twitter's a little bit different because Twitter doesn't really have separate business profiles from personal profiles. Every other platform has the business and the this and the this. Not Twitter. So no. So but you don't want to create your organization on it. So like set it up as an organization profile.
Okay, great. I know MCAN, we bit the bullet and we have a subscription to Hootsuite, and that helps us manage our content across all platforms.
And I didn't talk about schedulers, but yes, you should. Schedulers are going to be your saving grace. You know, use Hootsuite. There's Sprout Social. They're a little bit more expensive. There's Buffer, who's a more reasonable. But Buffer has been taking out features and adding it in. Yeah, there's been problems with Buffer on their cost structure now. However, though, that said, Buffer does, I want to say it may be a 50% discount for nonprofits. I think it is. I think it is. And I'm not sure about Hootsuite with the nonprofit discount.
Okay.
Yeah, but I know Buffer does have a nonprofit discount.
Right. And Allison dropped into the chat, Buffer is $180 a year for managing 8 accounts.
Is that the nonprofit rate or that sounds like the regular rate?
Allison, you can unmute yourself and.
Oh, hello. So Buffer may have a nonprofit. They're not showing it on their pricing page, but that may be something.
Right, so they don't show it. So you have to dig a little bit deeper and email them your 501(c)(3)s. I know this for sure about Buffer because I've made all my nonprofits do it. But then once you do it, unlike Facebook, they get right back to you and you're good to go.
And Hootsuite is, Hootsuite looks like a lot, but to be honest, I've never contacted them and asked, hey, what can you do for us? So maybe.
Right,
maybe
and
they
I
can
would
do
always ask that question, whether they say it or not. I'm from New York. We're always looking for a deal.
I also have another question. I have 2 MCAN board members on the call this evening, and both of them have tried very adamantly over the past few years to get Stack up and running. I'm sorry. I'm confusing another question. This question is from only one MCAN board member. And the question is, is Substack worthwhile as a place to launch newsletter content?
I'm not familiar with Substack.
Okay. Then we will do our own research. That's great. If somebody has a question, feel free to unmute yourself. I've sort of gone through the chat and picked out the real big questions that I saw. But if there are just 1 or 2 other questions.
You said you had another board member question? Did you have 2 board member questions?
Oh, there's another question about Slack. Having a Slack channel for sharing information.
Yeah, I like Slack. I do like Slack. There's a lot of ways to share information. Slack is one. I mean, frankly, you could have a WhatsApp.
Right.
You can do WhatsApp. That works just as easy. So it really depends on how much and what type of sharing you want to do. But WhatsApp is quite straightforward.
That's true. That's a good point. Are there any other questions from folks on this call that either I didn't pull out of the chat or that you have right now that you would like to ask of Angela?
And by the way, that Tweetdeck tool, you can actually schedule your tweets through that as well. So it actually has a lot of capabilities built into it.
Oh, interesting.
And it's free. That's the operative word.
Right, exactly. Any other questions from folks? No? One moment, there's a, okay. Yeah,
Substack seems to be a blog-like alternatives for writers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something to explore.
Right. Right.
I have one question. Do you have to be a 501c3 to have a donate button on?
Oh, yes. On Facebook?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Definitely.
because we're ad hoc. So okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's a problem too. If you
Could
can,
you put it through another 501c3?
you could, but here's the problem when you do that. So Facebook also looks at when your website, so if the 501c3 underneath, so they're going to look at their website, which obviously is not going to match yours. And then it's like, there's another layer of explanation. You can do it, but sometimes it just becomes a little tricky.
Okay, thanks.
If I could, I want to point out Martha's comment in the chat because it's the funniest. I'm laughing. I laughed out loud. It was going by fast. It said, "This was great, thanks," which I totally agree with. Thank you so much. She said, "I just don't want to do any of it," and she's right. We call social media the monster that has to be fed, because also once you engage, it could be all of your time every day.
That is why I almost start every conversation with repurposing content. I'm like, what's the littlest thing that I can do? And I really think if you guys sit down with your calendar and just plug in all of your usual stuff, you have an annual fundraise, if you do give into, like, plug in all the usual stuff and then work your way around the rest of it. There's always a theme, especially, if you think about sort of the hashtag strategies, random acts of kindness. Who knew today was random acts of kindness? There's always something. If you go to, there's a website, brownielocks.com, and she literally has every single day that's celebrated, every week that's celebrated, every month that's celebrated. Anything that's celebrated is on brownielocks.com. So if you have holes in your calendar, like, I don't know what I'm going to do today, go to brownielocks.com and there'll be something there. It's chocolate day, whatever, it's something.
I think that's a really good point, Allison. MCAN, we're a very small team, and we need to, with Rose on the call this evening, we spend most of our time trying to prioritize what we post. So it's really important to have, really have a clear sense of capacity and what the messaging is, what the content is that you really want to push out. And for us right now, it's about legislative actions.
Yep.
Right. And I did notice, actually, Brad has his hand up.
Hey, Brad.
Hi. This is really interesting, and I joined a little bit late because I got the time wrong. But it's a little overwhelming, and it seems like for like a chapter-based organization like MCAN or Mass Energize, for all the littler organizations that we work with, it's getting too hard. And that so helping out from I don't know how to do this, but feeding stuff to our groups to do things must be the way to.
Yeah, and I think that's why the partnerships are really useful, especially, a bunch of small organizations together make a larger sort of organization. I think if you think about how you can share resources with other like organizations, that'll be helpful. The thing about the calendar is the first time you go through it, it sucks. I'm not even gonna lie. It just takes a lot of work and energy. But once you create that calendar, that's it, you're done. You just now you just plug it in, and I'm serious about you could just, when you get back to January, you could just roll that stuff all out again. You just update it and roll it out. So the first time around, it's a pain in the what. But once you get it done, and if you're using a tool like Hootsuite or Buffer, you can drag and drop. So literally you can go into the old and drag it right back in and put it back in the queue again and put it right back out there. So the first time is a pain in the neck. But once you get your system down, I'm telling you, this is why you want a system. Because once you get your system down, all you have to do then is kind of just update it. The creation of it the first time is a lot of work. But after that, You'll be so happy that you set it up.
I think Brad does raise the really important point, though. And it's something that I've been talking about in different coalition spaces. So for example, MCAN, we created our first ever virtual advocacy toolkit and sent it out to all of our coalitions. And I think, Brad, that's something that could be used by so many different organizations that align with our messaging and our advocacy. And so, for example, for everyone who's still on the call, there are 2 virtual lobby days coming up in early March. One is with the coalition called Mass Power Forward, and that is on March 4. And then the other virtual lobby day, the date has not been set yet, but it's with the group formerly known as the Green New Deal, now known as the Mass Renews Alliance. The point being that in my mind, I'm thinking about how to basically, Angela, repurpose some of that toolkit content while also adding to it, because the toolkit content is much more narrow compared to our full ecosystem of legislative bills that we will be focusing on. So I think, Brad, what I am pondering right now in response to your question and observation that, hey, this is a heavy lift. I think it is a heavy lift the first time around. The start of the legislative session, we've got our bills. We're going to be building on the virtual toolkit content and graphics. For Mass Energize, working with JCAN and the groups in Framingham, I think each of those groups you work with would have potentially they could share one calendar, but have very specific parts of the calendar that are unique to Framingham or unique to JCAN. And so I do really appreciate this emphasis on having a system and modularizing it over time so that
exactly. And if you can think about sort of like the highway lanes, right? So you got lane 1, they have lane 2, and then somewhere along the line it does kind of cut all the way across, and that's where you guys are all resharing each other's content and getting that reach out there.
Does that
and if you're doing virtual stuff, you should, one thing with Facebook, which they have made a lot easier, is when you are live on the page itself, you can go live on multiple pages together. So that's another way to really expand your reach. So if you're doing a lot of combined live events, do them directly on Facebook and launch everybody's page together via Facebook Producer. You're on mute, Sarah.
Yeah, I know. It's like mute, unmute, mute, unmute. Yes. Anyway, that is fascinating.
Yeah.
And I just think, this is. I've learned a lot this evening, and I learned something the first time I gave Angela a call. It's like, yes, I want you to come and share your wisdom.
Right. And actually, one other thing while I'm talking about live events. So if you are doing a live event, and especially if you're doing it live via Facebook, set up an event on Facebook. And when you set up the event, if you're hosting with everybody else, list all the other organizations as a host. That gets it going. That gets the whole Facebook algorithm really running wild. Like putting all of that together as an event and going live together via Facebook Producer, you're going to get really good results with that.
That's a very good point. And MCAN we are a co-host with Mass Power Forward for our virtual lobby day on March 4th. Yes, Gilda, we are recording this session. MCAN will be sending out a follow-up email. It will include Angela's slide deck.
Yep.
It will include a link to the recording. It will include the chat because there's some interesting commentary in the chat. And it will also include sign-up information for the virtual lobby days that I mentioned. And lastly, it will include access to our toolkit. It's on our website, but I'll put a link in our follow-up email And so these are, I think, what I really, one of the outcomes of this evening's conversation, not only learning so much from Angela, but also, you know, being, for all of us on this call, being much more intentional about how we can coordinate and connect over social media around shared advocacy efforts.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, do you guys like have a Facebook group where all you guys can talk about and share resources and stuff like that?
We do not.
Okay.
I think that's
And you may want to quote crowdsource your toolkit. So when you put it out there,
yes,
you know, people can add on to it.
yes,
and
yes, yes.
it's much better with each iteration. Everybody kind of adds their little piece, and then you'll really have a real comprehensive toolkit that everybody can use.
Mm-hmm. I love that idea. Excellent. Yep. Well, I'm looking at the time. It's 7:17. And I just wanted to once again just thank you so much, Angela, for your expertise and your willingness to hang on past time. And thank you for everyone who joined the call this evening. This was co-hosted, Mass Energize and MCAN, trying to model what it means to come together in collaboration and spread expertise and goodwill and making these connections. And so look for an email from, yes, Michael, I saw you were on the call. I was hoping you'd be on this call. So Michael is from Needham, and he and I talked about volunteer recruitment using social media strategies way back in the fall. So glad he's here. And so thank you all. And Angela, that was rock star fabulous.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And again, thank you all for having me here today and hanging in there to the very end.
Okay, everybody, look for the email and take good care and stay warm.
Yeah, stay warm. Bye.
Bye, Angela. Have a good night.
Okay, and I'll send you those slides when I finish here.
Fabulous. Thanks so much.